Good morning, YouTube. Man, I made a mistake today. I've been making mistakes, subtle mistakes, all week. But boy, it caught up with me today. It's funny how mistakes catch up with you over time, and you don't even need to know that you're making the mistake to get caught up in it. I have been subtly and slowly unscrewing the straw from my water bag the last 2 weeks. And I thought to myself last time I had it out, before today, not today's, the time before that on Friday, I thought, you should probably check that you're not unscrewing that every time you pull your straw back through your bag, big boy. And I didn't. And so guess what happened? Today, when I pulled it back through my bag, I had just subtly untied it enough that it leaked about a liter of water into the bottom of my bag. Now, thank God for, this is outdoor brand. I got it from Walmart for like $30. But thank God it's made in the way that it is. The bag absorbed most of the damage and then actually spit most of the damage out the bottom of the bag onto my butt. And thank God the floor of the Christ table where I get my lunch. And so I noticed it when I went to pick it up off the floor, and there was a whole liter of water laying there on the floor under it. And I'm like, oh no, oh God. And so today's reading of Mothman Prophecies might be on hold, just so I don't accidentally tear any of these pages just by holding the book. But thank God. I thought the onion skin, these onion pages, were going to be saturated and ruined, but it looks like my Play-Doh is wet, but it looks like it's going to be okay. And my Bible, thank God, my Bible is fine. So reading John Keel might be wise to let that sit for a few days, which means that there's a better than zero chance that Spoopyween is only going to be John Keel, because I have a lot of books I'm reading all at once. And so on Homelessness, day 21, I haven't been doing a very good job of logging them by number, because the weekends are boring and it's hard to upload without Wi-Fi. It takes forever and it eats a huge amount of my battery, and I'm just oppositionally defiant and just pathological about my avoiding demands, that so long as no one is giving me a demand to post these on a schedule, no one's asking me for more, and I'm getting no real comments, so long as that happens, my personality is likely to tell you to go fuck yourself. I'm going to do whatever I feel like. And so what that means is Shaggy Dog Gaming is back. Talking to myself gaming is back, all the way back. I'm going to lean into Final Fantasy because that felt really good and I was really proud, and it's giving me an opportunity to practice video editing so I can make these better. And I no longer have my pathological terror of Dead Space. So this most recent episode I'm very proud of. It's mostly Dead Space. I was tired and I was hungry, and I had live streamed for 9 hours, and I didn't have anything new in my mind because I don't research or study on the weekends, and when I do, I write very little of it down. In fact, I'm not unconvinced, as I'm confessing to you. These homelessness logs are really confessions, and I need to lean into that in the description to teach you what confession means. It doesn't always mean telling the bad things you've done. It's kind of a walking memoir. It's a way of wiping your own slate clean, getting forgiveness for yourself. Not necessarily for transgressions, because like I transgressed against myself by making this mistake. And so confessing that even I make mistakes, and I make a lot of them. I fell asleep without my socks on last night, and I left them up against the material of my tarp, because when I'm hungry, I get tired faster, and your brain works less well when you don't have a steady flow of carbs. And I messed up. I made mistakes. I got tired and I fell asleep, and I forgot to put my socks on before I fell asleep. So I kept waking up cold as shit. Like, man, why am I so cold? The answer is it's cold today. It was cold last night. It was cold last night, and it has not warmed up today. It was supposed to be warm today. Today was supposed to be in the mid-70s, so that's fine. I'm actually happy about that. You don't understand. If you think that the weather has never brought me down, like sad, all that stuff, never happened. The weather has never bothered me like it bothers other people. In fact, I've always had a relationship with God via the weather where you just have no control. And so there's no reason to complain. Just thank God for the weather that you have and then live it. And if it's uncomfortable and it's unpleasant, thank God for your ability to think ahead and be prepared for rainy or snowy or cold or overly hot days. Just know how to handle it. And that gets me to, I've been doing a lot of thanking God and really thinking, really meditating, really being self-critical about what I'm doing, because everybody I talk to has a similar reaction. And so yesterday I confessed to the pastor and to the woman working the welcome desk at church that I'm homeless, for reals, he's homeless. And the way I like to spend, and my pastor was stoked about it. Mark was just stoked to learn that the way I like to spend my time is reading scripture for YouTube. He was just stoked about that. Now, he wouldn't be stoked about a lot of my interpretations and a lot of my opinions, because while Mark understands that, and he says it at the end of every sermon I've heard, and that's too, that Jesus is God, and God is a greater God, that Jesus is a God, and he clearly understands the difference in theoi and dei, and that, or theoi and zeus, and I really like that. I really like that about him. So he was stoked to learn that I'm pulling an Abram, I'm pulling a prophet, I'm doing, and I saw him reading over my shoulder as I was reading Ezekiel during the praise music. I told you I was probably going to do that. The praise music makes me uncomfortable, and I'm very tall, and I have a good voice, and I don't want to be known for it. And so he encouraged me to sing, and I know he was watching over my shoulder while I was reading and studying, and that feels good. You don't understand. For me, that feels good. I like to be tested. I have major test anxiety because I have, like everyone, failure anxiety. Nobody wants to come up short. Nobody wants that. But I like to know where I stack up. And so I don't need hundreds. I got accustomed to hundreds before ninth grade, but I don't need them. And yeah, so what I'm doing now is what I've always done. It's extremely self-critical self-evaluation, extremely critical self-evaluation. And so one of the things that I do in that evaluation process is I evaluate whether I need the admiration or the positive reinforcement or the attaboy or the adulation or the consideration of my superiors, the people who are testing me. And like the reason that I never climbed the corporate ladder at McDonald's, or why my GPA was so bad in high school, is because I found myself not needing the approval or the positive evaluation of those authorities. I didn't need Walmart, McDonald's. I didn't need McDonald's to know that I knew everything that I needed to know in order to be a manager. I didn't need my teachers to think that I had studied for the test. None of that was interesting. It's not even that when I say interesting, I don't mean like you mean. You mean something else. You mean something like captivating or infatuating or something else. You mean something else entirely when you say interesting. When I say interesting, I mean something worth investing time and money in, something worth accruing interest, something that I believe will accrue interest in my life. And I suppose that means from the outside that people will find interest in me, and I will accrue people who are interested in me, I guess. I never really thought about it that way. I never planned to be an intellectual. I just chased what I was curious about until I found the answer. And that can take 30 years because there are things you can be curious about that the answer is just not available to you. A lot of answers, from a Philaletheia standpoint, a lot of answers are withheld from you on purpose because enlightenment is not what you think it is. And so if you're chasing enlightenment in the wrong way, then you're Alice. And we understand that Alice in Wonderland is absolutely about grooming teenagers to identify as the sex puppet of an older adult male, right? Like, we understand that. We're adults. This is marked not for children. I don't tag my stuff in such a way that children will have any reason to be in my algorithm, and we can be adults about Alice in Wonderland, right? We can't on Twitter. I found that every time I brought that up and mentioned that on Twitter, people would get in their feelings. Oh, I don't like to think about it as that. I choose to interpret it as some other thing. And it's like, okay, but we do understand that that is what rationalization is. And we understand that rationalization is talking away the harm that's happening to us, right? And so we understand that the rationalization process is absolutely 100%. There's nothing else that it is besides talking away the harms that we're doing to others and the harms that we're allowing to happen to us and that we're allowing to do to us. That's all rationalization is. Reason is only your faculty to do evil and convince yourself that you're not. That's all reason really is. Now, if you want to talk about your ability to calculate or cogitate or think rapidly, that's a very different thing than what reason is. Reason is not some middle ground between these things that you think it is. These are all different skills. Ration is literally your ability to parse out what you need in order to survive. How much harm can you do? How much harm can you take before you die? That's what rationing is. You understand that when you ration food, you're being rational in your thinking, right? Like, we understand how these words work. We understand that the reason that there are so many words is because they're not all synonyms. They all mean specific things. So like, big means something different than large, and large means something different than huge, and huge means something different than giant, and gross means something entirely different now. But a gross of potatoes used to just mean a big ass pile of potatoes. You're like, and big ass is more than big, but it's not large. A large number is not the same as a large tree. Like, these words, they're different for a reason. And then because of the way that language works, the way that used language plays out, even individual words can have multiple meanings. And so that's just a truth. And when I speak like a poet. I know what my words mean and I use them specifically. And that's very interesting because today's poets don't behave like that. You don't behave like that if you're a poet. I watch closely writing communities on Twitter, and people will so easily give up, and I call this being stupid, but people will so easily give up on what they should know that I see people talking about how they laughing at themselves because they went looking for synonyms for look or grab or touch. And it's like, you should not be writing if you can't instantly grab synonyms for any word. Every word in your lexicon, you should know 5 other words that mean similarly enough that you can use them interchangeably poetically so you're not saying the same words. In fact, if you're writing, you should have the gist of about 100 stories just living in your head. Really, you should have 1,000 stories entirely memorized. But you should have minimum 100 stories, the gists of 100 stories minimum memorized in your brain, so that you're not just telling the same story over and over. There's a really good YouTuber that I like, Daniel Thrasher, who used to have a series where he was making fun of how you can accidentally write songs that have already been written just by playing standard chord progressions. You just play a standard chord progression and put a rhythm on it, especially a simple rhythm on it, and you've written a 70s or an 80s song, an 80s pop song. You just, oops, I accidentally rewrote this pop song. And yeah, that's what modern literature is, especially young adult and women's literature, and those aren't different categories. Adult women in their 40s and 50s read young adult literature. And so now I'm talking in my Homelessness Day 21 log, I'm talking about why I read these difficult books, this difficult literature, and why I comment on difficult audio work, why I haven't fully embraced just stealing from the Daily Wire to criticize Jordan Peterson or the big channels. Because the one comment that I just did as a fluke. The one commentary on a YouTube channel I did as a fluke, and it turned out that I kind of made myself look like an idiot by not knowing what I was watching. But I literally didn't know what I was watching. I clicked in, and I was so appalled within like 10 seconds that I had to rip this guy apart, even if the video was several years old. And that's on YouTube, so that's also a commentary on YouTube. And you know what? I have to pee so bad. I'm sitting here pee dancing. I have to pee so bad. Maybe what I do is I make a reference to Persona 4 and then I pause this. I'm going to pee right now. I'm back, baby. Okay, so I want to tell you a little story about me and my family. I met a woman today. It's pretty cool. Her name is Debbie, and her fella's name was Jeff, and that was cool. She took a lot more opportunities to practice my name than I did hers, because I immediately forgot it. I thought it was Brenda, and I knew that was wrong. I had the B's, but I couldn't remember the rest. Anyway, she offered to help me find a hat and a jacket, and I was talking about how everybody has the same reaction to learning I'm homeless and learning where I am. They're very concerned about the cold and the coming cold, because whether they're homeless or otherwise, because same thing when I was confessing in church to the welcome lady, she was very concerned that I'm going to be warm enough. And I have to explain to them, like, no, my tent is solid. My sleeping bag is good. It's just cold. And so I do have a draft, but if I had a good hat and just a little bit of weatherproofing. And so she asked me what size clothes I wear. And it's funny because, like, I told her, like, if I was trying to get a hiking jacket, and what I was trying to do is I was trying to wear everything skin tight, like my hiking thermal pants, and I have a thermal hiking turtleneck that is filthy and stinks, and so I can't wear it. It's going to give me rashes and blisters and stuff. So and infections, basically, because it sat out in the rain for a couple of days, maybe like 5 of them. Anyway, she asked me what size I am, and I said, well, I'm about a medium, but I'm really tall, and so mediums will come exactly to my belt. And so what I said is I like to wear big clothes, and so you can see this is a triple XL. I like to wear long, big clothes on my body. And so I showed her. I was like, I'm very skinny. I'm actually very skinny under this. And the reason I wear big clothes isn't so I look like a big person, or so I look cool, or whatever, the hip hop inner city thing where they wear obscenely large clothes. No, for me, it's just a personal preference. I've just always liked tunics. I've always liked the idea of tunics, and I do prefer to have something covering my pelvis. I just don't like the idea of a dick print, and I don't like the idea that that people are looking at my butt. I've just always felt like the pelvis needs to be covered. And now part of that is because of my own history of sexual abuse, receiving it, not doing it. But it also comes from a very interesting place. And maybe you can learn something about like how your own habits follow you from childhood and you don't even realize it in hearing this story. So my family are all big people, except for my mother, and I've never seen my great grandmother. She's basically the grandsire of our family. Sire's not wrong. Grandmare. So anyway, I've never seen her, so I don't know what she looked like, but she was Shawnee, and the Shawnee people are actually making a big comeback right now as far as being recognized as a human group, like people group in the United States because of Civilization 7. Their chief has played the Civilization games forever and reached out to the Firaxis to be a big part. And so Tecumseh is actually going to be in Civilization 7, and that's a big deal. That's my heritage. My great grandmother was full Shawnee, so even though I never knew her, that is my heritage. There's a branch in my family tree, if you like to think of it that way, that's tied into all of that, all of the politics, all of the wars, all of the religion, all of everything that went on between the Shawnee and the United States. And so, like, when we talk about white people that want to get mad about Native Americans that have no real Native American ancestry, mine goes back only 3 generations. My dad, my granddad, and his grandma was Shawnee, full Shawnee. So I'm, whatever that is, 16th, 32nd, something like that. I have no opinion. I've never known a single Shawnee person. But my point is that white people who want to get all up in their feelings about this with no ancestry there also don't actually know any Native people. The Native people just want to be recognized as people in the same way that Mexicans just want to be recognized as people. But they also confusingly want to, they want to rely on silly handouts from the U.S. government. And so they put themselves in an impossible position. So I think what the Shawnee are doing, what the Shawnee chief is doing by getting himself in Civilization 7 is pretty sweet. I think it's pretty cool. Not just because it's my people, but because it allows people to see that, oh, wow, there were a lot of nations. Because they put a ton of Native American nations in Civ 6. And it really seemed like that was a lot. I heard a lot of fan pushback, like, that's too many. Like, but there are more. The Cree Nation, I believe it was, were upset about the way they were represented, that Poundmaker was represented because he was a man of peace. He was a man of economy. And it's like, well, that's what Civilization 7's about. You don't have to go to war with anybody. When I play Poundmaker, if I get myself into a position where the only move forward in the game is to create or is to start an aggressive war, I play a different Civ. I've won. Effectively, I have so much money and so much territory that the rest of the game can't compete. And so that's how you can tell the difference in the people who are playing and the people who aren't playing. And so I think it's cool that the chief of the Shawnee is playing, but that has really nothing to do with the story I want to tell you. All of the people in my family, except for my mother, and I don't know what my great-grandmother looked like, are big, stocky Dutch people. Big and stocky Dutch, English people. And Scots-Irish, Dutch, Scotch, Irish, English. And they're all tall, and they're all broad, and they're all overweight. Every single one of them is overweight. And so I was the only one of my siblings, even. I was the only one of my cousins that didn't grow up stocky and heavy and what they used to call husky. You used to have the husky sizes for boys that were just thick built. And so I was never that. I've always been skinny. And so my grandparents, whenever they would do the Christmas clothes shopping, they would always get me 2 or 3 sizes too big and say, oh, you'll grow into it. And I never would. And so I've just always cinched my pants around my waist because I don't like like the sag. So I've just always done that. And it was really funny. When I transitioned when I was making good money, when I was working for United Dairy Farmers, I transitioned from big baggy clothes to clothes that actually fit my body. And you can really tell the difference. People were like, oh, that's a person who's living in his body and likes his body type. And then I was also riding a bike every single day and being physical and active, and I was fit and I looked good. And you can really tell that people who are overweight, A, don't know why they're overweight, and B, hate it, and make it your fault. And so I wear these big clothes because my family always thought I was going to get fat. My family just always expected me to get fat, to be some 300-pound, and I hate carrying that weight around. I hate the weight on my knees and on my ankles and on my hips. I hated being heavy while I was married. I was about 210 is the biggest I've ever gotten. And when I saw a picture of my face, I went, no, that's got to go. That's got to go. And so this is still homelessness, day 21. And really the idea is that I'm able to process a lot of memories that what did I do with them? I just blocked them away. And so I wouldn't recommend that you be homeless, but I would absolutely recommend that you spend some time every single day really thinking about your behavior. You know, I keep listening to, I woke up today with Chasing That Neon Rainbow by Alan Jackson stuck in my head. Oh, I'm chasing that neon rainbow, living that honky-tonk dream. I'm not going to do the whole chorus so I don't get myself copyright struck. I'm sure that country music is litigious as fuck because you don't hear it in public. I am certain that country music is litigious as fuck. So, because I don't think all of Alan Jackson's work is even on YouTube Music. But that song is about how he grew up listening to country music on the radio, relatable, and that his parents bought him instruments and invested in his wanting to sing and took him to country shows and spent the money that they had as poor people on that. And I can't really relate to that. My parents bought me a guitar my sophomore or junior year in high school. It might even have been Christmas of freshman year, but they made it very clear that they didn't want me to learn how to play. They wouldn't take me. They would talk about, oh, we found somebody who will give you lessons, but they wouldn't take me. It wasn't like with my trumpet. And so I got disenfranchised with the guitar fast, teaching myself in 2005 with the material that was available to you. It wasn't something I wanted as badly as what Alan Jackson does in this song, clearly. But you could change the lyrics to something like, I listened to podcasts and stand-up comedy and preachers and motivational speakers, and I just wanted to be a part of what they were doing. And so I woke up with that song in my head, and so I put it on, and now YouTube Music is getting pretty good. The algorithm is getting pretty good at learning what I like. And so I'm trying to tell you that this morning I heard Aaron Tippin's song that my dad always liked so much. If you don't stand for anything, or if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. You got to be your own man, not a puppet on a string, right? But in that, he also says something that his dad gave them a piece of advice, and this is where I'm building to. All of this is building. I'm telling you that what you want to do is spend some time being self-critical every day, because what you do during the day, you're going to have to sleep with at night. That night. So whatever you do today, you're going to have to sleep with tonight. And you want to be self-critical because you don't want bad dreams. And you don't want to struggle falling asleep. I no longer struggle falling asleep because I'm no longer emotionally or morally or ethically or in any way compromised. You understand? Like I don't have I'm not earning my bread by doing things that I don't believe in anymore. So I sleep like a baby. In fact, I sleep impatient to wake up and begin the day. Like I keep waking up at 2 and 4 and 6. Like, let's do it. Sleeping is a waste of time. Let's get up. Let's get up. Let's get up. Let's get up. They need me. The world needs me. You have videos to make. Let's do this. This laying around stuff isn't you. You don't like it. You've never liked it. You only did it because it was what you were expected to do. All of the women that you've ever known are so cripplingly lazy that they make everyone around them lazy or punish them. And I don't have to do that anymore. I can wake up. I can do whatever the hell I want. I asked Pastor Mark if I was allowed to come into the church in the mornings, and so if I want to and it's too cold and I just can't handle it, he invited me to come as early as he said. I was told 9 o'clock by someone else, but he said the doors open at 6 if I really wanted to get there that early, and I don't. I don't like to be awake before. I really don't like to be awake before 8 because it is brutal fucking cold, but it starts getting brutal cold at 8. So that's 12 hours, which means that I'm going to sleep for about 6 of that, maybe 8 of it, and then I'm going to have to which means I have to wake up and get stoned and force myself back to sleep for that next 2 or 4 hours. And I don't like living like that. I've never liked living like that. But when you have a job, that's life. Where else do you have to go now? If you're making $20 an hour, hell, I've never made that much. But if you're making $20 an hour now, where are you going? What are you doing with your time? Are you just one of these people that goes and does what I watched happen yesterday, just walk laps around the mall because you don't have money to spend? And then you sit down and you eat your pretzels and then you take another couple of lap and you get an icy and you take another couple of lap and you just spend your day eating because you're bored? And look, I get it. The worst times for me as far as recognizing that I'm hungry are when I'm bored. When there's just nothing to do. Or what I'm doing isn't generating an income. And then I go, oh, I'm hungry. And then when I get hungry, I get petulant. Because my whole life, this is more confession, my whole life, and I don't know how to solve this problem, has been working to eat. Because I was raised with a Dutch-German ethos that you work and then you get to eat. And so I've been thinking a lot. I've been saying just portions of the Lord's Prayer. I've been saying the portion, give me this day my daily bread. Because in the ancient world, everyone got fed. Everyone was allowed to eat. That's why the number of people who made it to adulthood mattered, which means that's why children were exposed. It had nothing to do with eugenics below the level of the top 1% of owners or earners in the ancient world. Outside of the top 1%, eugenics is nonsense, which is why I rail against it so much, because the people in the next 49 to 74% of people obsess over the things that the rich do, the top 1% do. And so that 75 or 74% of people doesn't make sense to care about eugenics and hypergamy. It doesn't matter. It doesn't make sense. You don't make enough money for any of it to matter, and chasing after that stuff is how you're going to end up broke. But I've also been thinking about the Reba McEntire song, Fancy. Here's your one chance, Fancy, don't let me down. So forgive me for what I do, but if you want out, well, it's up to you, so don't let me down, 'cause your mama's gonna move you uptown. Right? That song is about a woman who's so poor, she's been sleeping around with guys hoping that one of them will choose to man up and be a stepfather for her children and provide for her and for her children. Well, her youngest baby is starving and the state is coming to take the middle child. So she's taking Fancy to the rich part of town, putting her in an expensive dress with the last amount of food they have and dropping her outside a restaurant. and seeing what happens. And it becomes up to Fancy to find a husband and make a life for herself. And that's real. And I keep finding myself in that position. I could do that if I chose to. I could be just charming and just clean and, just attractive enough to land a woman. I've done it before. It's a bad idea. It's a terrible idea. Women can't be trusted with that kind of responsibility. They can't be trusted to elevate people out of poverty. Never have. The Mahabharata is very clear that a man who marries above his station is going to be murdered by the woman, and a woman who marries above her station is going to be whored out by the man. You have to marry at your station. But this is the same rules of hospitality. You don't go to people below your station to seek a free bed and a free meal when you're in a town that's not yours, and you don't go to people above your station, because you're not going to know the rules of engagement. You're not going to know how to be polite. You're not going to know what humility is. If a rich person goes into a poor person's home, the poor people are automatically, whether they should or shouldn't, feel like they have to spend everything they've got to impress this guy. And now they're in trouble into the future because that guy's not carrying cash. He's not going to replace their food. And the hospitality rules, he doesn't owe them. You don't understand. He doesn't owe them for what they give him. They have to give it freely by the rules of hospitality. If they don't give it freely, it's not hospitality. And that's frankly illegal in the ancient world. You'll basically get kicked out of town for it if you don't give hospitality. But if you go to somebody above you, same thing. You're going to constantly feel like you have to bow and scrape, and they're going to have to make the choice. Do I let them eat at my table, or do I make them eat at the appropriate slave table, the appropriate table in between, if it is in between? But that's why I was reading Daniel. I read the book of Daniel yesterday, Saturday and Sunday before church. And the book of Daniel is very clear that Nebuchadnezzar isn't evil, in fact. In fact, anyone who tells you that the book of Daniel, or anyone, thinks that Nebuchadnezzar was bad, evil, over-aggressive, did things that were outside the rules of warfare for his day, is lying to you and speaking from a place of ignorance to try to impress upon you how good Darius or Cyrus are. But I'm going to tell you right now, Darius is a blip on the radar in that book, and Cyrus is history's good guy, because Cyrus set everybody free from the Persians. But Cyrus is history's good guy because Cyrus was really good at propaganda. You have to understand that anybody who's a good guy in history, especially if they're at the top 1%, anybody that history believes is a good guy because the books say he was a good guy, and there's multiple attestation from multiple people groups that say he was a good guy, it just means he's really good at propaganda. It means he's really good at propaganda. And Daniel makes that point very clear, that what Nebuchadnezzar does is he punishes the king of Israel for being an asshole, the king of Judah, the king of Jerusalem. He punishes him and him alone, because we have Steli where he was feeding. We know that he was feeding that guy's children, that guy's children lived off his table. So we know that's true. So the book doesn't ever claim that he mistreated his sons and his children, his daughters and his sons, because if Nebuchadnezzar had, I think his name is Joachim, I think that was his name. Anyway, if Nebuchadnezzar had mistreated the Judean people or the direct descendants of this Jewish king, I'm going to say Joachim, I'm probably wrong. If he had, the Bible would have made the claim, and we would have found evidence, because this isn't the post-historical period. The Nebuchadnezzar was an adept literate himself, and so his libraries were historical and contemporary. They knew their past, and they knew where they wanted to go in the future. That's why Darius wanted it, and that's why Cyrus took it. So my point in Daniel is that they actually praise Nebuchadnezzar. They don't condemn Nebuchadnezzar like everyone. I've never heard anyone make this claim. Every single person says that Nebuchadnezzar is the worst king in history, and the most brutal, the most this and the most that, the bloodiest this and that. But contemporary reports about the man, even if Daniel's a century later, the memory of Nebuchadnezzar is that he was a king of the time and that he was the most powerful, but not that he was unjust or iniquitous, because the memories that come to us are of him listening to a Jewish prophet and elevating the Jewish prophet Daniel above everyone to his right side, even worshiping his God, wearing the sackcloth and doing the ashes to avoid disasters. Being a good Jew is what Nebuchadnezzar converts into after he meets Daniel, because the book is very clear. The other prophets didn't know what the fuck they were talking about. The priests of the religion, it had been so long since the religion was created that none of them knew what they were talking about anymore. They didn't understand why they were doing what they were doing. And the Jews constantly have this self-critical look back. Do we know what we're doing and why? We'll make up a reason if necessary. That's what the Torah is. I've demonstrated that with Leviticus in my blinding array from John. I'm going to let this go about an hour because you need to hear these things. Daniel is very clearly saying that Nebuchadnezzar wanted to put the Jewish people to work, not just in farms, but he realized that this is a highly literate people, very educated. They understand math and astronomy, and highly educated people. He very much understood that the Hebrews were trained and specialist craftsmen of religion, and that he needed good propaganda. And so what he understood is that the Jews are really fucking good at propaganda. Jews are really fucking good at propaganda, and still are. That's why people are willing to believe they rule the world, is because their message is the only one that even their enemies listen to and take seriously. You understand that the Democrats and the Jews are natural enemies, right? But you understand that the Jews keep their enemies close, and they keep their friends close, but their enemies closer. And so what that means is that the Jewish people work in the administrations and the governments and the bureaucracies of their enemies before their friends and families. That's why they look like they rule the world, is because they go and they do exactly what my dad said. And this comes from the book of Daniel. My dad said that if you want to change the man, you have to become the man. But then you have to be careful. You have to be the man. If you want to change the way the man is, you have to be the man. But you have to be careful along the way that in being the man, you don't become the man. Meaning that if you want to sit at the top, fine. You have to do everything that the person who's sitting on the top now has done to sit on the top. But in the process, you have to be careful not to make the moral and emotional and the blanket compromises necessary to get there, and in so doing, get there as the same type of person. It's almost impossible. Heavy weighs the head that wears the crown. But beyond heavy weighing the head that wears the crown, which is my favorite line from my favorite song on Mastodon's follow-up to Crack the Sky. I can't remember what it's called. It's not the Sparrow, the Hunter. Or they also say that absolute power corrupts absolutely. That's not true. That's not true. What is true is that the process of seeking out and attaining absolute power corrupts absolutely. So if you're the kind of person who's going to live like Dariush or like Karush, you're one of these people, you have to make the same kind of choices they made. Darius took the throne by force, and Karush took it by subtlety. These are your options, folks. History happened. Like, we didn't just wake up and it was 2024. No one did. Maybe someone did. But they're not in a position of responsibility. They're an invalid in a hospital bed. Let's be real. They didn't just wake up and now they're going to go out and have a good day. No, now they're going to spend the rest of their life in rehab. And I don't think you really think about that enough. Comas are still they were a big deal in the 90s and the early aughts, and they're still a big deal today. Yeah, that's what I've been thinking about as far as being homeless. And yeah, I probably left some things on. I did. Uh, I was telling you about Debbie. That's what I sat down to talk about. My experiences as a homeless person. I did my prayer and I ate, and I'm sitting there watching the Bengals game. Hey, who day? Finally got that win. I walk around. I walk around as a Bengals fan all day. So, who day? That's great. That was a good win. The Giants are a bad team. That score should have been a lot higher. Uh, the Saints Buccaneers game yesterday was awesome, wasn't it? The games in my local area sucked. I got to watch the Browns lose to the Eagles, and the Eagles are bad. Nick Sirianni needs fired. Well, he needed fired in mid-season last year. But this isn't a football podcast. I suppose I'm demonstrating that I have a huge variety of interest, and there are a lot of ways to spend time. And what I don't like to do is spend time on things that aren't with other people and aren't engaging in other people's interests. I like to orient my interests toward other people's interests. So Houday, that's great news. I watched the first half of that and fell asleep last night, but I'm sitting there watching the second half in the Christ Kitchen, eating my dinner, my lunch, eating all I'm going to get to eat today, and couple sits down, Debbie, and we got to talking, and she asked me, she goes, is there just anything you need? Everybody's worried that I'm going to freeze. They look at me and they go, you are going to freeze to death. You just don't have enough weight on your bones. Even when I walk into the Christ Kitchen, nobody there is giving me second glances when I want to fill my belly until it hurts. And I do. I fill it every day until it hurts now. Gotta stretch that out. Gotta have the extra calories, because the colder it gets, and damn, it's cold today, but I don't have windproofing on my body unless I wear my rain jacket or my poncho. And that's what I told her. I said, well, I've got a rain jacket, I've got my poncho. My problem right now is that I don't have just a big jacket. And so she said that she was going to look for a hat and gloves and a jacket for me. And today is the 14th. So on Thursday, the 17th, the church that's along my path getting here is doing some kind of giveaway. So hopefully that will be early enough in the day that maybe I can find a coat and a hat and some gloves. And if I can find that, and I can get some extra socks, because wearing the same socks, doubling up on the same socks for 3 days in a row, stinky, and I don't like touching that and getting on my hands. But thank God it's in my boots, and I don't stink yet. Thank God I don't stink yet. I'm so worried about that. I know I don't stink yet because the library ladies don't give me looks like, can you back up a little bit? And they don't stand away from me, and I can feel it. But that part of that is I'm using these Arm & Hammer body wipes, and they're doing a great job. They're keeping my foot from getting infected. I am almost out of bandages, but what I'm trying to tell you is that we were talking about that, and she was telling me all kinds of resources, and she explained to me, she goes, being homeless in this town, they're not going to help you. The town's not going to help you. The city's not going to help you. She asked me, she's like, do you like the city? And I said, oh, it's beautiful to walk around in. I said, it must have been just absolutely stunning and gorgeous in the 60s and 70s. And they were old enough. Jeff just is. And she goes, I hate what it's become. It's become a dump, a shithole. But in the 60s and the 70s and the 80s, this town was beautiful. Just beautiful. And that just means exactly what I've been telling you. The corruption is so real. And they don't have absolute power. You can corrupt a democracy, especially a Democrat in democracy, easy, because they're only in it for the money. And so if you think that rich people aren't voting Democrat, and that the only rich people who are voting Republican are Christian, if you're not thinking that, you're just too dumb to vote. You shouldn't be allowed to vote. It should be taken from you by force, if necessary. You should be hit with sticks if you try to vote. If you believe that rich people vote Republican, especially if you believe that atheists vote Republican, you have to be stupid, and that means that you can't be allowed to vote. You just can't be. you have to be informed in order to consent to the process. And so allowing you to vote is actually raping you. And the Democrats are happy to rape you. The Democrats are all sexual perverts. Every one of them is a sexual deviant. You have to be a sexual deviant in order to identify as a Democrat. In order to see people on that side of the aisle and think, oh, they're like me, you also have to be a sexual deviant. And as a sexual deviant, I can tell you that the way you get sexual deviance is by being touched inappropriately by Mike Waltz. Have you read that article yet about how they called him Touchdown Tim because he liked to rape the kids on his football team? Yeah, you can look at that guy and know he's a sexual deviant. Look at his face. Look at the way he smiles when big groups of people are adulating him. That guy's never gotten adulation before because that guy has secrets. That guy has the worst kind of secrets. You don't adulate, you don't adule, you don't glorify a man like that. And so he's surprised to get the glory. The only reason he gets the glory is because of how badly he ran Michigan. Do we not know anything? Like, are you guys just so, it's ideological. Are you so religious that you're unwilling to know anything? Christians have a bad habit of that, but the neo-pagan is worse. Like, if you think that Christians are bad about only acknowledging the information that they look, I got a little farmer's tan for my glasses, don't I? That's hilarious. If you think that Christians are the only people who are willingly ignorant to justify their worldviews so they don't have to engage in the Bible and be better people, you're fucking dumb. I don't have anything else to tell you. You're just too fucking dumb for me to even consider you human. And you understand that's not dehumanizing you. That's, you haven't made yourself human yet. Like, read the Bible. Watch my dizzying array of metatext with John. There are 3 stages of human being, and you haven't ascended the first one yet. The first one is an education and acceptance into a cult. Now, it's a professional cult. It's a cult of profession. But if you're not in a career and you're not in a guild associated with that career, if you're not in effect in a union and you're not engaged in that union, you're not human. I'm not human. I accidentally ascended straight to prophet, straight to Son of God. I'm not Son of Man. Never got an education, and I've never been allowed in a cult. Now, I was in Kroger's Guild for a minute, but I'm not still. I'm just a son of a mother. That's called a son of a bitch. And that's why that used to be the worst insult you could say about another human being. You son of a bitch. That means you're nothing. You're nothing. You're nothing. And it means your mom gave away the sex that conceived you for free. It means your mom's horny. Son of a bitch means that you're the useless progeny of a horny woman. It's a real bitch of an insult, which I think is very funny. But yeah, I'm in a good place. Homelessness is treating me well. I like the cold. I like waking up to the and being a little pissed off. I like being a little pissed off. And I like that it's not with a sense of injustice. It's with a sense of, I did something wrong. I made a mistake. And so, yeah, I made a mistake. My bag is just wet. But I tested my water bag and it's not leaking anymore. So my bag's just going to be damp for a few days, which means that my books are just going to live in a bag for a few days. But that's in a Walmart bag, a plastic grocery bag or whatever. And that's okay, because they can go back into my backpack once they're in that bag, and I know they're not going to get wet again. I like mistakes, because mistakes are a learning moment. Okay, double check that next time. You had the impulse and then you got confident. Well, confidence is another word for a lie. Confidence is another word for rationality. It's another word for reason. Confidence is where someone else has rationalized and reasoned out that you're not taking advantage of them, or that you're not leading them down Alice's wormhole or rabbit hole, that you're not grooming them. And I did not properly groom myself, not to be a better person, and not do the one thing I didn't want to do, which was fuck up this book. I was really trying hard. I've told you about it. I used to leave it here so I wouldn't fuck it up, and I fucked it up, and I feel really bad about it. Now I have to fix it. Now it becomes pathological that I have to fix it. I have to make this right, which means I have to make enough money to find a copy of it and donate it to this library, because I have to make it right. I fucked up, and my personal ethos is you make it right. Because I played sports, and there's always a next time. There's always the only time you don't get another chance. The only time you don't get another chance is when the game is over and the score has been counted, or when you died. Right? There's always, like they say that you never get a chance at you never get a chance at making another first impression. Well, you do. It's just up to your opponent. It's up to the people who aren't you to look at you, and that's called respect. And so you have an infinite opportunity for additional first impressions. You just have to be willing to forgive the people who may or may not trespass against you to begin your day, and just assume that they are forgiving you. And like Jesus said, if they're not, dust them off your feet. They're not worth your time and consideration. And so now I've put myself in a position to talk about how fucking awesome I feel like a winner. You don't understand. I feel like a winner because between 6 and 10 people who said they were my friends and that they cared about me and that they wanted me to elevate them with my elevation have unsubbed from this channel because I'm using it. I like that. That leaves you an opportunity to be the hero that they chose not to be. And heroism for me doesn't mean elevating me from poverty. Anymore, I'm actually over. I sat and I talked to God, and I'm over asking for tips and asking you to get involved and help me eat. I can live 2 days a week without food. That's fine. And because of Debbie and Jeff, and because I did that to God and I opened myself to the universe, they told me where I can find food, another church that will help me. And because I'm a believer, as soon as I'm baptized, the whole world opens up to me as far as I'm concerned. But because I'm a believer and because I've recently been consecrated, I have recently taken communion, and yesterday was the first Sunday in a month that I haven't run into conflict with a cop, with a human being. I didn't run into conflict with fucking anyone yesterday. It was fantastic. That's evidence to me. You don't have to think it's evidence. I don't need you to believe. I don't need you to believe that I'm having these religious experiences and that I'm hearing phantoms singing at night that comes from different places. I don't care whether you believe anymore. And that frees me up to just be me. And you know what I am? I am joyful. I'm happy. Even yesterday, I mean, you can watch my videos. Even yesterday, watch my Final Fantasy Let's Play from yesterday. Saturday night. I didn't do one yesterday. Maybe I didn't record anything yesterday. And you know how good that feels? You know how freeing it is to just be me? I want to be a YouTuber. I want to be here for you. I want to be given videos. Hey, comment on this. What do you think about this? What about that? What about that? What about that? And I no longer have to be worried that I'm going to hurt your feelings by hating the things that you hate, or hating the things and the people you love. I used to refuse to do that. Well, I'm not going to watch it all the way and comment on it. I'm just going to tell you where their first error is, and it's usually within the first 2 minutes. And people will be like, oh, I didn't notice that. And they didn't like that. that I was able to so easily dismiss their stuff. Well, now I'll do it. And you don't have to pay me anymore. I'll just do it for free. I'm happy to do that. I woke up with that song stuck in my head, and he says it. Most nights I sing for free. Lord, I'd love to make a living, but I wouldn't have it any other way. I really wouldn't. I keep self-evaluation, folks. Self-criticism. I keep looking hard at myself. Am I angry that I'm not eating? Am I angry that I'm not making the things that I need in order to survive? Or am I upset that people made me promises and didn't fulfill their end of the bargain? And it's that. And you know how freeing that is? Dust them off your feet. They don't actually love you. Fine. I've never felt loved until I opened myself up to the community of Christians. And yesterday I spent more time in that church yesterday shaking new hands of people who smiled and genuinely wanted to know my name and genuinely wanted to invite me into their community than I have in 37 years of my life. And you have to understand, all of us did 13 years of school. 13 years of school. I did preschool, 14 years of school, plus 6 months of university, plus another 6 months of university while I was in high school. I went to probably 8 different schools. Let's count them. I went to preschool. I went to Mary Oaks Elementary, and then I went to a magnet school by which the name I don't know, and then I don't know the name of the school that I went to in 5th and part of 6th grade, and then I was in Rutherford's junior high or whatever for the second half of 6th grade, and then I was in Mooresville for 7th and 8th, and then I was in Piketon for high school. I went to Shawnee, and I went to Dayton. That's 9 schools? Did I count that right? Oh, my time is almost up. I've got about 15 minutes. Yeah, 9 schools. So I went to 9 schools as a child, and then I did... How many jobs have I had? Do you want to count those too? And I'll end on this. If you want to know why you don't like the corporate culture and why you don't like going to work and why you wake up angry and reticent and you spend your whole day grumpy, I can fix that for you. I can fix it right now. Stop imitating church. Go to church. See what church culture is like. And then stop badly imitating cult in the business world. Especially if you're in charge. Say hi to people. I don't give a fuck if you're not a gregarious person. Say hi. When you walk in, say hi. Or do like I used to do. Hey, just don't talk to me until I've had my Coke. Once you've had your Coke, go around and fucking say hi to everyone. It's not hard. It's not hard to just say hi. I don't know why we've become so shy all of a sudden. The world has become so shy, and it does harm to itself by refusing to just engage with the people around it. Look, I'm going to tell you right now, you see those people every day. If there's somebody new that comes into your work, say hi to them. You don't want to know why? They probably fucking work there now. You're going to see them every day, and if you don't say hi to them on your first impression, they're just going to think you're a shit person. It is not the responsibility of the new person to come and say hi to everyone. It is the responsibility of the community to fucking incorporate them. Bring them in. Say hi. Be nice. You don't have to be even a good person. In fact, you can start over with every new person you meet. Your baggage doesn't come with you. You can just be a good person to a stranger. And guess what? It's not hard to sleep with that. You've been a good person with a stranger and they don't know you're a shithead. So to them, you're not a shithead. You have a perfect opportunity with me to start over, blank slate. And that's the real beauty of the internet. That's the real beauty of adult life, is every single person you meet is an opportunity to learn something new about your community, about yourself, about them. And it's an opportunity to have a totally blank slate as a person. If your life isn't working for you, practice the skills that I'm giving you on strangers. And you'll find that it works with strangers. It'll work on the people in your immediate environment. And if they don't believe that you're the person that you're changing into, dust them off your feet. There's always a new job. There is always a new job. there is always an answer. And it's usually very simple. It's always been this way. It's starting to, the pages are starting to blow out. They're trying to dry. You see it's starting to blow out. So it's going to be water damaged. When I turn it in, they're going to be like, he said he was going to try not to destroy it. But it's okay. This is a book they had out on their stand to draw attention for that they're celebrating Halloween or whatever. I need a different bag for my. But so it's all good. It's all good. It's a book from the 70s that I'm the only person who cares about. I just don't like damaging things that aren't mine. I was raised that if it ain't yours, you treat it with the respect like it is yours. And if you don't treat your things with respect, that means that you need to treat it with extra respect. Because what nobody wants is to give you something that they care about and for you to destroy it. What they're not going to do is go, oh, well, you destroy everything that's yours. That's my fault for giving it to you. That's just not how life works. You're going to say that's how life should work. That they should have known better. They see how I live. And that's just a terrible metric by which to live. You understand that the only people who think that are alcoholics, hoarders, and junkies in general, right? And you understand that the difference in an alcoholic and a junkie is exactly nil. You can have a functional junkie. You've never met somebody who was a pill popper, but also managed to maintain their corporate job. You've never seen that. You think it's funny actually. Functional addicts actually take pride in their functionality. Oh, nobody knows. Everybody knows. If anybody doesn't know, they're just not looking. They just don't care. But that's another thing. We've been taught not to judge. But that judgment and care are different words. Care is the same word as passion. Kare, in the Proto-German that became this shirt's wet. Anyway, the Proto-German that became English, kare, the word that became pronounced care after we became majority literate and we lost the E as an sound, it just became silent, right? It just means suffering. Passion just means suffering. So when you care about something, it's a certain kind of... Oh, no, it's not this bottle. Okay, I just drank that much, so that's what that is. Care is suffering. So what do you care about? What do you suffer for? What do you care about enough that if it doesn't go right, you don't get your way, whatever, you care? Well, do you share suffering with strangers? Like, do you feel other people's pain? That's compassion. That's caring about somebody else. And so, I've spent a long time, and it's a trauma for me, with people just not giving a shit. Just not caring. It's not hard to care. It's really not hard to care about something that's not you. It's not even about effort. Because what I was going to say is, you just give a little bit of effort and you try to care. But you don't even have to try to care about someone that's not you. You just do it. Just goddamn do it. Just care about them. Ask somebody how they're doing today. Hey, how you doing today? Say hi. You don't have to get into a huge conversation. Like yesterday. Probably my best interaction of the last several days, maybe the last several weeks, as I was leaving because the other thing is, you can compliment people. That's something you really need to do. Like, one of my favorite things to do is walk up, this is today, I walk up to the library desk and the librarian's wearing a cool necklace. Hey, cool necklace. You might think it's whatever, but I like circles. And so for a little bit, I got to stare at your cleavage. You justified letting me look between your tits at the pendant on your neck. And we all know to whatever degree this is true, that women wear necklaces, especially necklaces with pendants, because they want to draw attention to their titties. Now, there's a certain amount of they want to draw attention to their idiosyncratic ability to identify the beautiful, and that's cool. But not every woman is like that, and we know that fashion isn't, as a blanket statement, about identifying the beautiful or identifying even that you can make beautiful things. We all have watched RuPaul's Drag Race or the Next Top Fashion Designer or whatever it was called, and we know that that's not what they're doing. They're not pursuing beautiful clothes. They're pursuing insane looking clothes that aren't real clothes, and that's the point, is to make humans in clothes not look like humans in clothes. But we do understand that when most people, especially single women, are shopping for clothes, they're thinking, is this going to make me look good, right? We want to look good. And so it's okay to compliment people. And so anyway, I'm walking behind what I thought was a single mother. I have no way of knowing whether she was a single mother or not. But I'm walking behind a single mother on the way out of the mall yesterday, and we had been hanging out in the same spot in the mall for the last hour or two. So I know she knows I was looking at her butt, and I don't have any reason to be ashamed about looking at an attractive woman's butt. I was looking, frankly, she had teenage daughters, and I wasn't looking at her daughters. I was looking at her. And so she's going to be like, yeah, I'm into that, because yeah, who's dumb enough to be confused about that? And who's dumb enough to be confused by a guy who's going to abuse a woman's daughters so he lavishes her with whatever? Who's actually confused? You can tell that those women were never confused. They always knew it was happening. They just wanted blank, whatever they were getting from that guy, and it's very rarely sex. And so anyway, as I'm walking out the door, I realized that I walk faster than them, and that it looked like what I was doing was competing to get to the door before them. Like, I want to get away from these teenage girls. And so I just slowed down. I let the girls go out the door before me, and I let Mom go out. And I didn't think Mom was going to hold the door for me, because why would I think she'd even noticed me, besides that I had looked at her inappropriately, and that's probably going to upset her on whatever level. And I'm used to that, and I appreciate that. Not every woman wants to be looked at. There's an objectification that comes with being looked at like that. And she wasn't dressed for attention. That's why I noticed her. She wasn't trying to get my attention. And I'm like, oh, attractive woman, dressed like just a normal person, doesn't want attention. She looks good like that. And so as she walked out the door, she held the door for a really long time, but with her back to me and her hips positioned in such a way that, yeah, her butt looked great. So I slowed way down. And I enjoyed that for about 3 to 5 seconds, like way longer than is socially appropriate. And then as she thinks that, oh, I must not be coming through the door, she lets the door go, and then she turns her whole body around so she can look and see me. And I'm standing there, and she makes eye contact, has to look up at me, and she does the, oh, I'm so sorry, with a real direct eye contact and a big smile. And I was like, oh, you are very good. I was walking slow, and then I winked at her. And whether she knew it or not, she's going to figure it out. She had to know. And anyway, I didn't disrespect for her in front of her daughters, and that's a teaching moment for her daughters, that you're allowed to be attracted to a man, and he's allowed to be attracted to you, and maybe next time you see him, your daughters won't be around, or maybe it won't be inappropriate. But it is inappropriate to approach women in public, which means it isn't inappropriate that people are using social media like Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Twitter for sex as a dating app. That is inappropriate. It's inappropriate behavior. It's not just flaunting that you can get it. It's flaunting that you're looking. And that's déclassé and passé, and it is bad. You should not do that. If you are doing that, you should stop immediately. The internet is not a sexual marketplace. There are pockets of the internet that are sexual marketplaces, but the internet itself is not a sexual marketplace, and not everything is an expression or a representation of the sexual marketplace. If everything you're doing is seeking out sex, if everything you're doing is seeking out approval from people that want to have sex with you, you really need to evaluate your life yesterday. You need to stop what you're doing and reevaluate everything. Everything. as a person who's just confessed to you that he did everything pursuing food and is struggling now with knowing that he's got food secured, so how is he going to secure sex? That's a real thing that human animals are concerned with. I'm telling you right now, during my own introspection, that is a dead end. It is a dead end. Find something better to bond over. Even if it's just sports, the sport is going to keep going. If you give up on the sport, that's you who gave up on the sport. And if you have a relationship that ties you to the sport, it ties you together and it ties you to the sport. You want to tie everything you can through your relationship. And so what that means is that when Pastor Mark yesterday accidentally called his wedding anniversary his birthday, he said our 30th birthday about him and his wife. I liked that because your life starts over the moment you commit to that person. Your life starts over because you're no longer one, you're two that are one. And so everything you do is a half. Everything you do has to be half for you and half for her. Has to be. And that means that if everything you do is 100% for her, it's 100% for you. Boys, girls, commit. I'm serious. Anyway, I gotta go. Keep your hands up, kids. Keep your eyes open. Head on a swivel. Do better. You can. I believe in you.